But be careful what you wish for, because the next 5 years are gonna bring nothing but bad news. Yes, the West is very tolerant and welcoming of other people's cultures, but it was never supposed to lose its own culture and values in the process. But we are not allowed to call them out because that is Islamophobia. So far, there is no legislation on the so-called Islamophobia, but soon you can expect legislation that will put you behind bars or at least fine you.
What I'm hoping, Kerry, is your experience as a prosecutor means you'll be thinking about the strategy we can use to make sure we take action against those who break the law.
Anyway, what's the saying? Import the third world, become the third world. That's happening right before our eyes. Would we be tolerant and welcoming to a culture that still believes in human sacrifice? Alright folks, this is Harris Sultan, and as expected, the Labour Party has won the 2024 general elections in the UK. It fascinated me how most centrist and reasonable conservatives decided to split the Conservative vote and gifted Labour a massive win. The argument that, oh, Labour is gonna win anyway, never really appealed to me because, yes, they're gonna win 326 seats, but splitting the Conservative vote only to come second and third is nothing short of handing over an easy win for Labour. Some Conservatives are okay with the thought that maybe things need to get worse before they get better, but be careful what you wish for, because the next 5 years are gonna bring nothing but bad news. We're going to have radical trans ideology shoved down your throats. We're going to be censored and probably even prosecuted for whatever they deem as Islamophobic. I can't help but remind you of this amazing prophecy by an atheist, Christopher Hitchens, back in 2008 or 2009, where he said, complain about radical Islam while you can because it will be banned. Listen to this.
This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic.
And have a listen to what the UK's new Prime Minister thinks on the subject.
One of the things that is coming up over and over again is Islamophobia. And, well, you can see the stats, you can see the numbers rising, particularly since October the 7th. Although we shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that before October the 7th, this was all heading in the right direction. It's been far too high for far too long. Clearly, we need to just say over and over again, Islamophobia is intolerable. It can never, ever be justified, and we have to continue with a zero tolerance approach. And I think there's more we can do in government. There's certainly stuff online which I think needs tackling much more robustly than it is at the moment.
What I'm hoping, Kerry, is your experience as a prosecutor means you'll be thinking about the strategy we can use to make sure we take action against those who break the law.
Here, he's sucking up to a very pro-Islamism mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, where he didn't even bother to, balance the equation by saying there is rising anti-Semitism too. But no, he just said that Britain is so bad that Islamophobia has been getting worse in Britain, especially after October 7th. Yes, sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, people in Britain, like any other decent group of people, should be and would be rightfully horrified to see how a significant number of British Muslims, hashtag not all Muslims, have responded to a terror attack in Israel. Instead of showing sympathy to the victims of October 7th, they started blaming the victim. We have seen some British Muslims celebrate October 7th. Call those terrorists freedom fighters.
The Hamas leader, you have to understand, for me, is a freedom fighter.
Demand the full destruction of a sovereign democratic country, which is, I'm sorry, genocide.
What are you waiting for? Jihad is responsibility on you. Wipe out that Zionist entity. How dare they occupy such a
Openly show allegiance to Hezbollah and the Houthis who have declared war in Britain.
And as a Palestinian today, it's important for me to say that I love my Irish brothers and sisters, that I love my Lebanese brothers and sisters protecting the north of our country, that I love our Yemeni brothers and sisters who put a little toll plaza in the Red Sea.
And the list of atrocious behavior goes on. But we are not allowed to call them out because that is Islamophobia. So far, there is no legislation on the so-called Islamophobia, but soon you can expect legislation that will put you behind bars or at least fine you for expressing concerns about certain Islamic values like, I don't know, child marriage or wife beating.
What I'm hoping, Kira, is your experience as a prosecutor means you'll be thinking about the strategy we can use to make sure we take action against those who break the law.
But I have to add that there was a serious effort by certain Islamist propagandists like Five Pillars, where they kept urging Muslims to stay loyal to the Muslim community and forget about party or country loyalties. They urged every Muslim in Britain to vote for an independent Muslim candidate in their constituencies. But I have to acknowledge and thank the decent Muslim community in Britain who didn't cave into this gaslighting that if you vote for Labour or the Tories, then you are somehow a traitor to Islam. Which they actually are, but let's not talk about that. Despite a dozen independent Muslim candidates, only 4 won. Yes, I know, it's 4 too many. Most of them are known for radical Islamist views, but I wouldn't go too much into detail because, you know, I like to visit the UK from time to time. Jeez, I'm talking as if it's China, not the UK, but I'm serious. I'm not exaggerating. It's quite possible that under Labour, I might actually be refused to enter Britain. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but it can. Okay. Anyway, what's the saying? Import the third world, become the third world. That's happening right before our eyes. The third world is not third world because they don't have tall buildings and shiny roads. That's just a mere symptom of something bigger. That is the values they hold. Almost all Muslim countries have a very universal view on the role of women, the role of non-Muslim minorities, and the way they look at religion, and the way they look at the world around them in general. None of these values are compatible with Western values. We've been sold this concept of multiculturalism. This is another phony term like Islamophobia. This term was coined by Canadian sociologist John Porter in his 1965 book, The Vertical Mosaic, an analysis of social class and power in Canada. Unfortunately, he failed to foresee that a culture with primitive values could threaten the dominant culture that enabled multiculturalism and tolerance. Those who tolerate intolerance in the name of altruism are idiots, not realizing that losing the primary culture means losing the ability to be tolerant at all. Yes, the West is very tolerant and welcoming of other people's cultures, but it was never supposed to lose its own culture and values in the process. Would we be tolerant and welcoming to a culture that still believes in human sacrifice? Would we welcome some cultures that believe in female circumcision, commonly referred to as FGM? Believe it or not, Western governments turned a blind eye to this practice for a very long time just because they wanted to be welcoming and tolerant of the Islamic culture of FGM. On the one hand, the West's progressive values are forcing us to be more humane in our treatment of animals, which is certainly a noble effort, but the same progressives turn a blind eye to the inhumane treatment of animals slaughtered as per the Islamic tradition of halal. And we can't only blame the left for this apathy. Even the Tories didn't do much to tell other cultures that they are welcome as long as their values do not clash with the primary values of the country. This is the reason why the Tories have suffered the worst defeat ever. Maybe this needed to happen. I still can't wrap my head around what's going to come because giving 412 seats to Labour is a disaster for the UK. Maybe you all know, but let me tell you the difference between winning 326 seats, which Labour would have won, and 412 seats that the Tories and the Reform Party have gifted to Labour. If you win this big, like Labour did with 412 seats, Labour becomes less vulnerable to rebellions or defections from its members that could threaten its ability to pass legislation. It can pass legislations like anti-Islamophobia and probably bring back blasphemy laws with impunity. On contentious issues where there might be significant opposition, Labour would be able to ensure that the government can still secure the necessary votes to pass its agenda. People are crying that the Reform Party won 4 million votes, which is the third most if we go by vote count, but they only got 5 seats. In contrast, the Lib Dems got 3.5 million votes, significantly less than Reform, but they got 70 plus seats. That's a lot. Well, that's because even if you get 50,000 votes and come second, they go to waste. They don't count. There should have been a better strategy and some seat adjustments with the Tories to ensure that they don't both lose and give an easy win to Labour. But I guess maybe some people want things to get really, really bad so that when the time comes for the next elections, the right-wing parties win big time. Or so is the hope. Either way, I think I'm going to be very busy over the next 5 years because I will have plenty to warn the British public about the rise of Islamism in the UK. So I hope you liked today's video. Like, share and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like me to continue making awesome videos like these, then you can be my patron by going to patreon.com/HarrisSultan or buymeacoffee.com/HarrisSultan. So until next time, ta-da. If you'd like to support my work, you can become my patron by going to patreon.com/HarrisSultan or you can simply buy me a coffee.